Great. So thank you all for being here as our July nutrition webinar. My name is Julie Lanford. I am the Wellness Director at Cancer Services. We are a local community-based nonprofit in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but as part of our programs, I'm the author and creator of CancerDietitian.com, which of course reaches people anywhere, wherever you are, if you're on the internet. So I have a lot of followers locally to my local area, but also in the wider US, North Carolina, and some even overseas. So I welcome anyone. I know someone emailed me today, can you invite others to join with you? And I would be happy to have anybody join. And if you have people that you think this information would be helpful for, I will send out the recording afterwards. I'll also put it on YouTube. I'm not live streaming it because I need to get the audio as well, because I have a podcast, the Cancer Dietitian podcast, and so people can get this information, whatever is most convenient for them. Our topic tonight, I say tonight, I'm on the East Coast in the US, so it's 8 p.m. for me. Our topic tonight is plant-based eating for cancer survivors. I do have a previous version of this particular topic that's recorded and on my website that has slightly different information. So if you want to get a double dose of me, you can go watch the old version. The slides aren't as pretty, but I actually have a little bit more content in there. Tonight, I'm really gonna just kind of cut to the chase, get to the basics. I call it kind of giving you the down and dirty, what you need to know around what this actually means and how you implement this nutrition advice into your day. So hopefully this will answer those questions and get you kick-started. And then I hope programs that I have coming up, which I'll talk about at the end. That said, for those of you who are on live, I welcome any of your questions as we go along or at the end. If you are watching this recording or listening to the podcast and you have questions for me, you can always contact me through the CancerDietitian.com website and the contact page. It emails me directly, and I try to get back to people pretty quickly and help you with whatever it is you might need. All right, so just so you know about me, I told you my name is Julie. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I think my next slide actually has the information for you. I am also a board certified specialist in oncology nutrition. I actually have to retake my exam this year to maintain that certification. I have done a master's in public health from UNC Chapel Hill, and I did my bachelor's in science and biology from NC State University. So I share this information not just to, impress you with all of my amazing credentials, but I share this because there's a lot of people with opinions about food, and not all of them are expert opinions. So I really encourage you to make sure that if you're reading something and you're having questions about it, that first of all, you vet the information to make sure it's coming from a reliable source. Registered dietitians have credentialed training programs, and we are from registered dietitians, but they should also be based in good, solid, science-based medical information. And so you should, like I would say, you don't have to just believe the information I give you. You should be able to sort of cross-check my information with good, reputable sources like the National Cancer Institute, the American Cancer Society, the American Institute for Cancer Research. Those are some of my favorite evidence-based to go for information. Of course, there's lots and lots of other great resources. So if you're in need of some reliable information and you need a list, just let me know. And that would be a great blog post topic I should do soon. So this is our topics for today or tonight. We're going to cover 3 things you need to know about nutrition and cancer. It's kind of a fact-based. Mean, because I find that a lot of people are confused. What are the daily habits that you could focus on that will help provide optimized nutrition for survivorship? And if you aren't familiar with me, I'll just say I am very focused on practical. I try to sort of dumb it down, make things as easy as possible for you to understand. I don't think you need to have a degree in order to go to the grocery store. I don't think you need to have a degree in nutrition in order to nourish yourself appropriately. It really shouldn't be that complicated. I just find that when people are diagnosed with cancer, they're sort of extra focused on some of these things that they feel like are within their control, and they can sometimes get misguided. So I hope that by the end of today, today's session, you will have lower anxiety around your food choices. You will feel empowered to kind of know what you need to do, and also have the freedom to, of course, choose things that maybe are just for pleasure. Foods for pleasure are important too. So we'll talk about how all those things fit in. All right, so first we're going to talk about nutrition and cancer. What are the 3 things you need to know? Number 1 to know is that no foods or nutrients can cure cancer or cause cancer. Is kind of my first line defense for you if you see some scary headlines, or someone says, oh gosh, I heard, sugar, you should never eat sugar if you have cancer, or blueberries are a miracle food, or this product has the most antioxidant in it, so therefore you should buy it, and it's going to cost you a fortune. All of those things kind of rely on a little bit of misunderstanding or non-science when it comes to how cancer works in our body and how nutrition supports our overall functioning. There's no one food or food substance that can cause or cure cancer. So no, sugar itself is not going to cause a cancer to grow. No, blueberries are not a miracle food, although they are good for you, right? So that's the one thing that I always remind people. It's not a single food or one type of nutrient that's more important than any others. The truth is that the right combination of foods in a mostly plant-based diet plays an important role in maintaining healthy cells and reducing the growth of cancer cells. There's nothing magical to this. This is not a replacement for cancer treatment. This is just, quite honestly, how our bodies function. It's how our immune systems work. It's how our cells kind of regenerate themselves, or how our immune system recognizes when there's an unhealthy cell and packages it up and gets rid of it. As much as I would like to believe that there is some kind of magical system going on, it is just how our bodies work and how nutrition works. Okay, so let's see. Cheryl mentioned in the Q&A that some things are freezing up, so hopefully it's clearing up for everyone. Okay, let's see what the next slide is. So, going backwards. Coming back to this piece, though, we will talk about what does plant-based diet actually mean, because I think it's important that we define that. But before we get there, let's talk about why plants are so important. So that comes to point number 2, that phytochemicals are plant nutrients. So these are, phyto means plant. I talk about this a lot. So if you've been in my other webinars, certainly we have a lot going on around talking about plants, and I kind of find lots of different ways to encourage you to eat lots of plants. So phyto means plant, and therefore phytochemicals means plant nutrients. Evidence continues to show that vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals found in plant foods interact to provide extra cancer protection. So basically they work together. We call it synergy, which is why we really do want you to, as much as possible, get a variety of foods, that it's not one nutrient that's the magical food. It is actually a combination of all these nutrients that you find in different foods. Let's see. So that, Well, let me ask a question while people are on live, and a couple people have said that there's some breaking up on the presentation. Is it better if my screen is not sharing? If anybody notices that, that's one question that you can, since I accidentally turned my screen off anyway. Is anything better without the screen sharing? It looks like my internet is okay. So I like to use the slides because it's something different for you guys to look at. But let me do this. I'm going to screen share again. If you notice any difference, let me know and I can turn it back off again. Okay, somebody said seems better without slides. So I'm going to use the slides. If it keeps messing up, I'll turn them back off again. How about that? So thank you for those of you who are putting in a chat. That's helpful for me. Just let me know as we go through the next couple of slides. If it's all messy, I'll turn them back off. And you can just look at me talking. Okay, so back to the phytochemicals. We know that the nutrients work best when they're in combination together. As the plant is grown, our body is designed to utilize nutrients that way. And that goes along with our third point, which is, okay, actually, before I get there, I'm going to talk about why phytonutrients or how we kind of look at those. So I call it your phytonutrient meter. Each day, you fill up your phytonutrient meter as much as possible. Now, if we were in a real live class, I would actually make this an interactive discussion, and we would talk about like what does a typical American eat versus what does a healthy survivor tend to include in their day. So just suffice it to say, we would spend 15 or 20 minutes kind of talking about different options, and we would come to this conclusion that what happens when people choose lots of plant foods throughout their day, it's not like one meal, it's just kind of throughout the day, they're incorporating lots of plant foods. They build up all these phytonutrients over the day. So you wake up in the morning, your phytonutrient meter is at 0. Every time you eat a plant food that's not too processed in a variety of colors, it starts to build up your phytonutrient meter. And what we know is that the people who tend to have the best health outcomes, who have the best quality of life, who are really optimally nourishing themselves, are basically building a lot of plants into their day, versus the typical American who, quite honestly, is probably doing their best. But what is most available to us as Americans is mostly, processed plants, lots of meat, or other convenience foods that tend to have a lot of these phytonutrients basically removed in the processing. And the colors we get aren't natural colors. They tend to be, like Skittles, eat the rainbow. So my point when we look at these different types of phytonutrient meters, my point is not to say, oh gosh, the typical American is eating so horribly and they should just, be ashamed of themselves, because there's no point in shaming yourself. That doesn't help. We know this from, good mental health research, that shame does not produce positive, behaviors in the long term. So we're not talking about making anyone feel guilty for their choices. But what I like to point out with these is recognizing that, to me, it's not, the most important thing for me to notice is that what your body needs is lots of phytonutrients to function. So the typical American is lacking those nutrients, and that is where the biggest problem is. It's not so much the junk they eat. I don't think that having junk food necessarily promotes bad health. It's just food that is, different nutrient content. The problem is it's lacking a lot of nutrients. And so if you fill your day with, say, sort of subpar foods that aren't meeting your nutrient needs, your body is just going to have to do its best. Whereas if we can, most of the time, provide our body with the nutrients it needs to function, we will feel better. Our bodies will function as best as they can. So to me, what's important is that you provide your body the tools that it needs to function. And those tools generally come from lots of plants. It does not mean you have to completely eliminate meat. But what it does mean is that you eat lots of plants. You might eat meat, you might not. But the point is, eat lots of plants so that you're building your phytochemical meter every day and providing your body the tools that it needs. So, which does bring to the third point, which is your body prefers nutrients in foods, not pills. It's very difficult to build your phytonutrient meter up to the level that your body needs by taking pill form of nutrients, because the pills tend to focus on providing you with a lot of only one type of phytonutrient, and that's not what our body needs. Our body needs quite a variety. This is why it's nice to eat by the seasons, because you get a variety of plant nutrients. It's nice to kind of get a variety during the day, to eat from a lot of different food groups, and to quote, not the Skittles eat the rainbow, but to eat the rainbow the way I define it, which is lots of colorful fruits and vegetables, and getting those met during your day. So nutrients all work together much more efficiently than working on their own. And so if somebody comes to me, this is another sort of quick tool I think you can use when somebody tries to sell you a supplement or tell you that something is sort of a magical thing. You can say, hey, I don't think, I need to really get nutrition from food if at all possible. There are some exceptions, which I'll mention in a minute. But really, I think what's important is for you to focus on providing your body with plant foods as much as possible. We do have to make some tweaks. And I also say that, you need to give yourself a pass if you're in treatment or in a season of your treatment where you don't tolerate fruits and vegetables very well. And we just need to get through that season, and that's okay. You can still give your body the nutrition that it needs, and then get back to eating lots of different, fruits and vegetables. So someone's asking on the news recently, plants containing pesticide residues. Actually, and you can go back and watch my organic versus conventional webinar, but there is not a lot of pesticide residue on the fruits and vegetables you buy at the grocery store. The amount of pesticide residue with either organic or with conventionally grown produce is very, very, very small, because there's rules and limits around how much pesticides can be sprayed on the actual produce. Usually they spray the plants or spray the weeds around the plant at certain parts of the growing process, that when the fruit has not been grown yet. And they do the EPA test pesticide residue on plants all the time, even with now the Environmental Working Group puts out a report once a year called the Dirty Dozen. It's not science-based, or I guess it's based on their science, which is not very transparent. And there's a lot of pushback against that particular group they kind of scare you a little bit into thinking, oh, I better not eat strawberries unless they're organic. But if you dig down and find out, well, how many strawberries, conventionally grown strawberries, would I really need to eat to get beyond a safe level of pesticide intake? It's a lot. I mean, it would be a lot of strawberries. So what I always tell people is that if you want to eat organic, and you can afford it and it's available, that's a totally fine choice. But quite honestly, what's important is that you eat fruits and vegetables, and the benefits far outweigh risks for pesticide residue. And the amount of pesticide residue, quite honestly, is just not very much, even regardless of whether it's organic pesticides or conventionally grown pesticides. So no, I do not worry about that. I do not encourage people to worry about it. I do say, I think for the local economy and for nutritional content of foods, if you can buy produce closer to you, like grown closer to you, first of all, it tastes better usually. If they're local farmers, they're ripe when they pick them, they just taste better. It doesn't, grocery store produce is also fine. Frozen produce sometimes is fresher than fresh because it's picked when it's ripe and then frozen and transported when it's frozen. So all of that is to say, I don't think it matters whether you consume organic or conventional. And I think there's a lot of solid evidence showing that eating plants is important. It doesn't matter whether it's conventional or organic. It's kind of I call it a choose your own adventure. If it concerns you and you want to buy organic, I personally try to get the tastiest. Like, I'm going to eat more fruits and vegetables if they taste good. And I do feel better about buying from local. So if I can go to a farmer's market, or I can support a local grower, I like to do that. And sometimes they're organic and sometimes they're not. It just depends on the farmer. It's expensive to have your farm inspected for organic. It's kind of it's a lot of a marketing tool at this point, and many small farmers cannot afford to have their farm inspected and pay that cost. So, and then somebody said, what about plants that travel half the planet to get to us? Nutritionally, things tend to have the best nutrition value if you can pick them when they're riper, but some produce are designed, by someone designed like potatoes or, sweet potatoes or apples, or some foods can just last a long time if you keep them at the right temperature. So traveling across the world does not in itself cause a problem nutritionally. And like I said, if it's frozen and then it's traveled, that basically preserves the nutritional content. So nutritionally, there's not a problem with getting produce, assuming it tastes good and isn't gone bad, from another part of the world, I can't speak to the environmental effects, on the earth in terms of that. That's not my expertise. So I always tell people, when I give you information, this is going to be from the standpoint of my training, which is how your body utilizes and benefits from the foods that you put in your mouth and chew up and swallow. I cannot speak as much to the environmental impact because that's not my specialty. That was an excellent question. Thanks for the little side note there. Okay. Let's see. So this is my exception on the pills, your body prefers food to pills rule. If you have low nutrient levels on blood tests, so let's say your vitamin D or your iron is low or your potassium is low, or, you've gone in and they've checked your labs and they're like, oh gosh, that's a little bit low. Let's get you some, supplementation. Nutrition supplements are essential for bringing those levels back up to normal. It is very difficult to get low levels back up to normal simply with the foods you eat. So that this is the case when nutrition supplements are useful. It's just you want to be able to sort of measure the impact of your nutrition supplement. I don't want people taking supplements just because, just because for safety. Multivitamins, if you take one every other day or a half a pill every day, I think that could be reasonable. But any nutrition supplements that have a high percentage of your daily value is just not necessary, and it actually causes more stress on your body to have to process a high amount or a high concentration of nutrition in that way. And I also tell people, to me, this is like the most processed version of nutrition is to, break it down to pill form. That's pretty processed to me. So yes, frozen vegetables are okay, is kind of my conclusion from our last question. And then nutrition supplements are useful in certain cases. And I also will say my exception to kind of our overall topic today is if you're in that season of treatment where you just can't eat very well, or let's say you have side effects from your treatments that make it really difficult to tolerate, like fiber, or your taste buds, or your mouth is sore, things like that, then we do tweak these. And I would tell you there are some tweaks we can make to consuming plenty of plants that can help make it more feasible for a lot of people who are going through treatment. Okay, so the point is that your daily habits are much more important, like your overall intake of nutrition is more important than any individual foods you do or don't eat. So I'll have people come to me or send me emails who are like, well, I heard that, I should eat, I mentioned blueberries, kale, every day. I should always have kale, or I should have collards. Those are like a very nutritious food. Or I heard cottage cheese is really good for you. I did hear this is a TikTok trend, and I'm like, there's no, I can't answer that. Of course, yeah, if it's the food, it can nourish you. But it's really more, when we look at good, solid nutrition research, it is more your food intake pattern that seems to have a bigger impact on your quality of life and your health outcomes, far more than any individual food. Like, we can do studies all day long and ask people, like, how many tomatoes do you eat? How many cantaloupe servings do you eat? How many blueberries? How much orange juice? Like, all these things. And it is so difficult to tease out because foods have such a variety of nutrition in them. Nutrients you get from orange juice versus cantaloupe can often be kind of similar, little different, but kind of similar. So how do you tease out which one's better? And I'm just here to tell you, there's no such thing as this is better than that food. It's really more about your overall intake of foods and how they impact you. So there's a question right now in the Q&A. It was about microgreens. Okay, so micro broccoli, fine. But does that mean that, micro broccoli is a vegetable? We'll just call it a vegetable. Does that make it better than broccoli? No, it's not better than broccoli. Is it better than alfalfa sprouts or other sprouted types of vegetables or microgreens? No. It is a vegetable. I would count it as a vegetable. If you're participating in my Eat the Rainbow program that starts next Monday, you can, check that box. Yes, it's a vegetable. I'm eating it. Does it make it better than other vegetables? No. And some people will say, oh, these, this garlic is better if you chop it up and wait 30 minutes and then use it in your foods. That is way too complicated for most people. So I'm just here to tell you, is it a fruit? Is it a vegetable? Is it a plant food and it's not too processed? Then it's likely good for you, and I would include it in a healthy diet. So the point is, it's really more about your health, your food intake pattern, not any individual foods that you do or don't eat. And you want to aim to offer your body plenty of plant nutrients each day. So I like to just get creative. Like, how can I fit as many plants as possible into my day in a way that really tastes good to me? I think if your nutrition plan or your way of eating is not fun or delicious, then it is not the right plan for you. Okay. So number one, your nutrition intake should be delicious. Again, there is always that challenge of treatment. And this is a balance that I always run, like, depending on who I'm working with, who I'm talking to, are they in treatment? Do they not feel like eating? It's not fun and delicious to eat when you don't feel like eating, but we all know, yes, you need to get nutrition. So sometimes we do kind of like, oh, okay, force feed, eat as much as you can to get as much nutrition as you can. But for those of you who are mainly able to kind of eat what you want, you want to find a eating pattern that is enjoyable for you, because that's important to me. Your relationship with the food is as important as the nutrition quality of the food that you eat. All right, so let's talk about what are the daily habits that I think are really important. Because eating is your opportunity to promote your health. You just think about, okay, when I eat, I provide my body nutrition that it needs, or I'm providing my soul something that feels good, right? So sometimes we eat to feed our souls, brownies, birthday cake. Sometimes we eat, most of the time I would say you eat to fuel your body, and sometimes you eat to fuel your soul. And so you want to find that right balance. But today we're kind of going to talk about what is sort of, if you had to have check boxes. I'm not really into check boxes and people having to have a perfect diet. I don't think you need to have 100% perfect diet. I think 80% is probably good enough so that we can have a lot of fun too. But I do encourage you to think about, when you eat foods or drink something, is this something that's nourishing me? Is it providing my body the nutrients it needs to function? Does it taste good to me? Kind of really interacting with the foods that you eat, not in a way where you're judging yourself and saying this is good or this is bad, but just in a curious way, in a way where you really taste the foods that you're having. Maybe you've grown back some new taste buds after treatment and you're just kind of getting to know eating again. Really pay attention to what foods taste like and how your body feels when you eat them. So these are the tools that you really need. You need phytonutrients. I've spent a lot of time already talking about that. So these are plant nutrients. You need fiber. Your intestines do much better if you give adequate amounts of fiber. Now, if you eat lots of fruits and vegetables or do the sort of habits that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, you will get enough fiber. We're looking at getting a variety of vitamins, minerals, and many of those are essential for human growth and development. And then hydration, so making sure you get plenty of fluids for your body to meet its needs. All right, so these are the daily habits that I recommend. And I think there's 5. I'm pretty sure there's 5. And then if you want, at the end, I'll give you a link to where I talk about kind of one of each of these. When you sign up for the email program, you'll get one per week. So it kind of slows it down. You get the crash course tonight, and then you can slow it down and get one per week if you sign up for that program. Okay, so some of the key things is, and the way I came up with this list, this is not just like Julie came up with this out of the blue, or Julie did some kind of fancy research study that figured out what these were. The way I came up with these is I looked at several different healthy eating patterns. So I looked at the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet, the anti-inflammatory diet, the new American plate from the American Institute for Cancer Research, and the My Plate from the USDA. And I was like, you know what? These are all healthy eating patterns. None of them are any better than any others. Happy for people to follow any of them, but really most of us just kind of need to make up our own thing, whatever works. I looked at all of them, and I had an intern, and we kind of compared, what do they all have in common? Hey, these are all healthy eating patterns and we want to build our own. We can figure out what is in common with all of them. And so that's where this list came from. So as I mentioned earlier, you can go back and watch my older version of this particular topic webinar, and I kind of talk through each one of those particular diets. But what I've learned over the last several years is people don't need the details. They just want the bottom line. So here I am giving you the bottom line of across all those healthy eating patterns, what they all have in common, which is what I think that I would encourage you to start with. Number one, the most important thing I ever talk about is how can we get people to eat enough fruits and vegetables? Because it's evident, research after research after research study just shows people who eat plenty of fruits and vegetables tend to have better health outcomes. They have more fiber, they have better gut health, they have better energy. Like, I don't know how else to sell this, but the amount of fruits and vegetables that we know is kind of what our bodies need is between 4 and 5 cups a day. If you are an older person, a smaller person, a less active person, you need fewer nutrients to support your daily activities. So you might be more on the 4 cups of fruits and vegetables end, whereas, for people who are more active or larger, taller, heavier, who are younger, your metabolism tends to be higher, you may need more fruits and vegetables. So I don't think you really need to count per se when we do the Eat the Rainbow program for people who are tracking. It's really just a matter of, are fruits and vegetables present at my meals? Check or not. I don't need you to measure. If you want to measure some just for an audit, that can be helpful from time to time, but I don't really encourage people to do a lot of measuring or counting of calories. I tend to encourage more of the intuitive process of figuring out how much you need to eat, which is paying attention to what your body says. It will tell you when it's hungry, it will tell you when it's full, and if you're really tuned in, it often will tell you kind of what foods you want to eat more of at any one particular time. So the point is 4 to 5 cups of fruits and vegetables from an evidence-based standpoint tends to be what we recognize to meet most people's needs. That is fruits and vegetables combined. Okay, so I'm not talking about 4 cups of fruits and 4 cups of vegetables. I'm talking about 4 cups, so that could be 2 and 2. If it's 5 cups, I think the My Plate would break it down to 2 cups of fruits or 2.5 cups of fruits and 3 or 3.5 cups of vegetables. I don't think it matters that much, honestly. I think it matters what's available in your fridge, what's available by the season. Sometimes there's more fruits. I mean, summer is amazing for good fruits, but also great vegetables. So it's not that important whether you have more fruits or more vegetables. What matters is that you put them, in your mouth and chew them up and swallow. So someone asked, are fruits and vegetables just as nutrient dense if you include them in smoothies? Yes. Actually, blending them prior to eating them can make them easier to digest. For those of us with fully functioning GI tracts, our GI tracts do fine digesting whole fruits and vegetables. But if you are having challenges with digestion, let's say you're in treatment and you just notice like you are not digesting foods very well, some of them are coming out, maybe intact. People with irritable bowel disease will notice sometimes they eat raw fruits and vegetables and they just tend to run right through. Cooking and blending them is sort of helping to pre-digest, and then you put it in and it's already kind of worked on. So yes, in smoothies is great. And smoothies really means that you're blending the whole or edible part of the plant and putting it in your foods, and I think that's awesome. I prefer smoothies to juicing because juicing removes the pulp, and if possible, we want you to get the pulp from the fruit or the vegetable because that's where a lot of fiber and nutrients is. So I prefer smoothies unless you are not tolerating foods very well or fibers very well. And in some cases, like people who are having radiation to the abdominal area, sometimes that affects how you digest foods. Or if chemo is really kind of making it very difficult for you to eat fruits and vegetables, then juicing is a natural alternative to get fruits and vegetables, but that helps remove the pieces that you're having a hard time with. Okay, so I put these bullet points on here because I think this is just a practical way for you to get 4 to 5 cups of fruits and vegetables. I find a lot of times people are skipping out of fruits and vegetables at breakfast. They're really not having much at lunch, maybe a slice of lettuce, slice of tomato, and then they're trying to pack it all in at dinner, which is just not realistic. So I do encourage you to think about how can I incorporate fruits and vegetables throughout my day, not just cram them in at dinner time. So a cup of fruit with breakfast, 1 cup of vegetables with lunch and a fruit, 1 cup of vegetables with dinner and a fruit, and then include fruits or vegetables at snacks and desserts. So if you can have a delicious dessert that also includes fruits, there you have more plant nutrients in your day in a way that's really delicious. So, if this sounds like a lot to you, I also would encourage you to like go in your kitchen, get some vegetables or fruit out, get a measuring cup, and see what 1 cup of fruits and vegetables really looks like. It's probably less than you think. Portions at this point have kind of gotten out of control, so our minds are not great at measuring. But put like baby carrots in a 1 cup measuring cup and see how many that is. Because I tend to find it's not as much as most people think. Okay, number 2, spread protein throughout the day. So protein is important. It is important that you get it in the morning time when you first wake up. It's important that you get it at lunchtime. It's important that you get it at dinner time. Your body does best when you provide it regular nutrition throughout the day, generally. So I don't encourage skipping meals. I'm not a big fan of intermittent fasting, unless you're just fasting because you slept all night. So ideally, you're getting regular nutrition throughout the day. It's best for your GI tract and your gut health, and it's best for your energy levels to do that. And protein is no exception. I do find people sometimes skimp on protein at breakfast without realizing it, especially if you're somebody who relies on milk for your protein in the morning. And if you have switched to a plant-based milk, it may or may not actually provide you much protein. So make sure you're checking. If you use a plant-based milk, please make sure you check the nutrition facts label and see how much protein is actually in the amount that you use. I just use cow's milk. It's got 8 grams of protein per cup. Soy milk also has 8 grams of protein per cup. Fairlife milk, which is a lactose-free cow's milk, has 13 grams of protein per cup, so it's even more packed per volume. So there's your bonus tip on milk. So I kind of went off on a rabbit trail on that one, but you can find protein in lots of different foods. So 15 to 35 grams at meals is kind of what I encourage people to do. So making sure at breakfast you get at least 15 is a good start. And then at snacks, 7 to 15 grams. Beans, nuts, or seeds at least once a day. This is important across all of those diets, healthy, nutritious diets that I mentioned. They all recommend eating beans, nuts, or seeds at least once a day because there's so much great nutrition in them. And then if you do eat meat, a small portion is adequate to meet your needs. So when we talk about 15 to 35 grams of protein at a meal, that is not a lot. A can of tuna size piece of meat, or the size of the palm of your hand, same thickness, no fingers, that's a deck of cards. That's about 21 grams of protein. So that's a pretty small piece of meat to meet your needs. So plant-based eating does not mean eliminating meat. I know some people use that term to describe vegan diet, but plant-based just means eating lots of plants. You can eat lots of plants and also eat meat and dairy, and that's totally fine. What is important when we say plant-based diet is that you eat lots of plants. What you have with your plants or don't have with your plants is kind of your own choice. That's another choose your own adventure. I personally include meat and dairy because it makes it easier for me to meet my protein needs. I have children, makes it easier for them to find foods that they like. I love vegan meals too. So, you can do kind of what I call, or what is termed a flexitarian. That means kind of eat a little bit of everything, but you focus a lot on plants, or some people term it plant forward eating, where you make sure to put the plants first, and then your meat or your dairy product is kind of like just adding a little flavor here or there or something of interest. But we would encourage you not to make meat or dairy like the main portion of your plate. Okay, so that's the protein. I have a protein post on my website, and I did a webinar on protein in January. So if you're interested, you can go back and watch that one, kind of learn more about the protein piece. Number 3, nutritious carbs. Carbs are important. They give you a lot of fiber. They give your brain and your muscles a lot of energy. Glucose is really important to fuel your brain and your muscle cells. So there's absolutely no reason that you should completely eliminate carbohydrates. This is why I am not a fan of keto or Whole30 or paleo, or I don't know, those might not even be that popular anymore. But I know keto's still popular. I'm not a fan. I think carbohydrates are really important and they're delicious. So whole grains are great for you. There's no reason you should eliminate them. I would encourage including them. I do find a lot of people maybe have their portions out of whack. So just like the meat portions tend to be out of whack for the typical American, the carb portions tend to be a little out of whack. And for a lot of people, they're eating refined carbs, so they're missing out on their opportunity to get lots of plant nutrients because the whole grains give you more nutrients or more phytochemicals. So generally, I say to have carbs on 1/4 to 1/3 of your plate at meals, or 15 to 30 grams at snacks. If any of you are having to manage blood sugars or keep those under control, I would say at meals, we generally say 30 to 45 grams. But I don't think you need to count carbs. The typical person does not need to count carbs. And that's why I kind of say when you're looking at your plate, 1/4 or 1/3 of your plate would be a good goal. And there's lots of great different whole grains out there. So if you're kind of bored of just rice and pasta and oatmeal and popcorn, those kind of are my like standards. Wheat for bread, oats, but quinoa, there's farro, there's teff, there's just lots and lots of different whole grains that you can experiment with, barley, and it's fun, I think, to try different recipes with different grains. And then fluids count. So your body needs water. Really, your body mostly needs water. So speaking of that, I'm going to get a drink of water. But our taste buds, of course, want a little bit of flavor. So I would encourage you as much as possible to use unsweet tea or unsweet coffee as flavoring, to your water. You can add lemon, you can add lime. There's new little like crystallized lemon and crystallized lime that come in little packets that makes it, I don't know, easy to flavor your water in ways that doesn't add sugar or artificial sweeteners. Sparkling water, juice, just, splashing some juice into your water can give it a little flavor. Milk are also options for flavor without added sugar. Sometimes added sugar is fine, right? If you're at the family picnic, and I live in the South, so sweet tea is a thing. You want sweet tea at the family picnic, no big deal. As long as, I tell people, well, don't make it a habit of having sweet tea every night. Have it at the family picnic. And if you can train your taste buds to really appreciate the flavor of unsweet tea or things that aren't overly sweetened, that just helps you to really enjoy lots of different flavors. So the other thing, artificial sweeteners, there's nothing wrong with them either. Any ingredient that's added to the food supply has to go through a pretty comprehensive testing to prove it's safe. So I do trust our food supply. I did a whole series on can you trust the food supply last year, I think. So those are also available on my website, the webinars and the blog posts. But artificial sweeteners are fine. What I find though is whether you use artificial sweeteners or sugar, you want to just use as little as possible because you're training your taste buds. And if you use a lot of artificial sweeteners or you use a lot of sugar, or you're somebody who's like, water doesn't taste good to me that says, okay, something's off with your taste buds. Now, if it's off because you're in treatment, then we know why, and we know that's going to, resolve itself at some point. And so that's fine. But if you're somebody who generally your taste buds are fine, but you have kind of gotten them used to a lot of either diet sodas or regular sodas or sweet teas or the flavor packets in your water, I do encourage you to drink just plain water at least half the time, just so you can make sure your taste buds are, your body is getting the hydration and your taste buds are like being reminded, hey, plain water is totally fine. If you like to use artificial sweeteners, though, that's fine too. It's kind of up to you on that one. But the scientific evidence shows that they're fine. Adding flavor. So adding flavor to your foods, you have an opportunity. So I kind of talked just a minute ago, like, okay, don't add a lot of sugar to flavor your foods. But there are ways you can flavor your foods there's ways to flavor your foods that actually add nutrition. That's what I'm going for, which is what the point is, right? Like we want to add more nutrients as much as possible. Like talking about the smoothies where you include spinach and fruit together If you have that for breakfast and you're having spinach in your breakfast, like that's really good for you. You might be getting a whole cup of spinach with your breakfast. And a lot of people don't get any vegetables at breakfast. So to me, that's like a big bonus. And the same thing happens. You can flavor your foods with herbs and spices, and that adds more plants to your plate. So even pepper, black pepper, curry, or cumin, or turmeric, or basil, or like Italian seasoning, or all the Mrs. Dash's combos, right? They're all basically just plants that are dried, and then you're putting them on your foods to flavor them. And a little bit of salt can help that flavor kind of spread around. And I think that that's a really great way for you to get more plant nutrients. You can also slice lemons and put them in your water. You can use like basil and put them in infusion water as well. So that's really fun. So I think flavor is an opportunity to give your body that nutrition, and also you can balance it. I say when you buy yogurt, if possible, you can buy unflavored versions of food, so no salt added or no sugar added, and then add it yourself at home. So buy plain yogurt and you want a little bit of sugar in it, add it yourself at home because you can control how much goes in there. You can also add some cinnamon. You could put some fruit in it so that it doesn't require as much added sugars in order to make it taste the way your taste buds want it. All right, so we're wrapping it up here. Gosh, I've kind of gone on a few different rabbit trails, but hopefully they were interesting to you. But our take-home points when it comes to plant-based eating for cancer survivors is, first of all, plant-based eating doesn't mean eliminating meat. It means eating lots of plants. Whether you have meat or not is not the main issue. The main issue is, do you eat lots of plants? So include plants in your meals and snacks as much as possible. Like when you sit down to eat a meal, you're like, check vegetable, check fruit, or yes, okay, I'm hungry, I'm going to have a snack. How can I incorporate a fruit or a vegetable with other nutrients in my snack? Get a variety of colors of plants. That helps you get a variety of phytonutrients or phytochemicals. Have plant proteins at least once a day. That will help build up your phytonutrient meter and meet your protein needs. And then you get bonus plant nutrients when you add herbs or spices or use like black tea or coffee that basically is brewing plants into the water. Then you drink the water that gives your body more plant nutrients. So double bonus on that one too. So those are just kind of the basics on eating lots of plants and why you want to eat lots of plants and how you can eat lots of plants. So I have a few action steps for you as we wrap this up. First of all, I mentioned the Survivor Diet email series. You can go to cancerdietitian.com/survivor diet. You just enter your email and you will start getting emails once a week that kind of give you each of these recommended eating patterns and information about that. You can start that now and you will start getting them every week. If you've already done the program before and you want to do it again, you know, I'm not certain if you can sign up again. So if you have trouble with that and you want to do it again and you're not getting the emails, just send me an email and let me know and I'll fix that. I do want to point out that starting Monday, for those of you watching live or watching the recording before July 17th, my Eat the Rainbow Summer Edition is starting on Monday. It's a 12-week virtual program that really focuses on eating more fruits and vegetables. So would love to have you join with that. So far, we have a lot of people signed up, and it's really fun when people submit their records and kind of tell me what recipes they love most. And at the end of that program, when you complete the evaluation at the end, you get all the recipes that I share throughout the program sent to you in an e-cookbook, and it's very pretty. I had an intern who worked on it and made it very, very beautiful. My next webinar, I am changing the time of the webinars. Some of you may have filled out my survey about when you prefer webinars to be. A lot of people watch the recording. So I was like, you know what? I don't need to be talking at you at 8 o'clock at night if I don't have to. So based on the feedback that I got, about half the people actually watch the webinar. They just wait till it's recorded and then watch it later. And then based on the other half who gave feedback about all kinds of different times. But the most people preferred was either lunch or in the afternoon. So in September, I'm going to try 3 p.m. on the, you know what? I think this date is wrong. I believe it's the second Thursday. So I think it's supposed to be Thursday, September 14th at 3 p.m. And I'm going to cover healthy grocery shopping. So make sure you bring all your questions about which products you should or shouldn't get. And the registration is not quite open for that. So make sure you're on my email list so that you get notified when registration is open. And then I also wanted to give you some extra recipe resources because I only share recipes that help you increase your plant nutrient intake. The American Institute for Cancer Research, which is AICR.org, they also have really great recipes. You definitely want to go check out their website. And Cook for Your Life is cancer survivor specific program that's really great, and it's a chef. And so, you know, chefs, they make good food. Like I make good food, but you know, my recipes are always like easy and practical and delicious. Chefs are really fancy. So they have some more fancy recipes than I would have. But I think their website's really great. So that's cookforyourlife.org. All right. Well, Karen said the webinar is on her birthday. So there we go. We're going to celebrate Karen's birthday in September. That's one day away from my dad's birthday. So maybe he'll join to celebrate as well. I think if anybody has any other questions, go ahead and put those in the chat or the Q&A. I'm going to stop the sharing. But I think that covers everything. Let me check and let's see. Yeah, looks like that covers all of my talking points for this evening. If you do have other questions that come up afterwards, feel free to email me, and I'm happy to kind of point you to some resources that might be helpful. But I do appreciate you joining me tonight. I will send out the recording likely tomorrow or Friday. And so if you have other people you think would be interested, you can send that over to them and they can check it out. That's all I think for now. Thanks so much for joining me. And I will see you again either with the Eat the Rainbow program or at the next webinar. Take care. Good night.